Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Free Friday webinar. Today, we have almost 400 people registered, and I see that some of you are still coming in, but I think we need to start as we only have 30 minutes. As usual, this webinar is recorded and will be published on our YouTube channel after the webinar. And after that, we have fixed everything with the captions. We have automatically captioned this webinar. Everyone's microphones are muted to avoid any background noise. And please do use the Q&A function if you would like to ask questions. I cannot guarantee that we pick up things from the chat. The webinar structure is that there will be a short presentation followed by a Q&A session in the end, but you can of course ask your questions at any time. And today it's my dear colleague Malin Hammarberg who will talk about accessible input fields.
Hi. So accessible input fields, we will cover from code to user experience, and I try to explain why different parts are so important. So I know we are going a bit nerdy today when we deep dive into input fields alone. But I promise you that hopefully at the end of this, you will look at your input fields as something precious. You will care for more with more love. So my name is Malin Hammarberg. I'm a UX designer and accessibility specialist at Funka Foundation. And I'm certified by International Association of Accessibility Professionals as a CPWA. That's Certified Professional Web Accessibility. So I know what you're all thinking. Wait, what? Why is she talking about input fields for an entire half hour? Well, I'm here to tell you, please hold my coffee because I'm just getting started. And I could honestly talk about input fields for hours. Input fields are everywhere on the web, and they are one of the most commonly broken accessibility components, but they're also one of the most powerful components we have. They seem so simple, right? But there's a box and you type in it. How hard can it be? But then we find things like this. So this is an image of input a form with 3 input fields. They are hardly visible. And it's first name, very light gray, and then a small underline, email, a very light gray, and a small underline, and then your message. It's an input field for contact form, breaking every possibility for a lot of users to even notice the input field. And then I find things like this, where this is wrong. All the error messages in this form is wrong, but it's hardly visible. It's 3 input fields on top of a dark blue background, and it just has a thin red frame. How will a user be able to fix the errors? How will they be able to understand what went wrong? So let's start with the visible part. Make it visible and make it clear. So before we dive into the code, the visual fundamentals. These are the things that we need to do right from the start when in the design stage. Because if we can't see it, we can't use it. We can't use the form. So placeholders enough aren't enough. This is one of the common things that we see. And I will dive closer into placeholders and why it's important to not rely on placeholders alone in an upcoming slide. We need good contrast, as you saw. We need better contrast than 1.6 to 1, that was in the very light gray form. We need visual indicators for the focus, so it's easy for users who rely on keyboard navigation to see where the focus is and what field is in focus. We can't rely on color alone to communicate important states like errors. Red text means nothing. If you're colorblind, you need icons and clear label text, clear error text as well. And we need to help the user succeed. And not just to catch errors, but also to prevent them, to help them not getting to that error state. So the design should guide the user towards success, not just slap their hands when they mess up. Good visual design is about making the path forward obvious and removing those obstacles before users even encounter them. So, the placeholder text. Let's talk about it. We see them, I see them at least everywhere. Forms where placeholder is the only label. This creates so many problems. So, once you start typing, the placeholder disappears. So if you need to check what the field was asking for, you have to delete everything in the field. And I have actually had user explain this to me. I filled this form out, but when I was at the end, I was unsure that I filled it incorrectly. So I had to delete every field and refill them. So for people with cognitive disabilities or memory issues, this is a true barrier. And for users with assistive technology, placeholder support is inconsistent across browsers. So rule number 1, never use placeholder, move it outside and have a label that's persistent. It helps all users. When we have that label, it's also important that we connect it to the input fields. So how do you properly connect the label to a field? Well, it's actually quite simple. Use the label element with a for attribute that matches the ID for the input. This gives you several benefits. Screen reader announces the label with the field, but not only that, you can also, when you have connected the label to the field, the label becomes clickable. So when a user misses the area and accidentally clicks the label, it still comes into focus. This is especially helpful for users, for instance, with motor disabilities. And also it's just semantically correct to do it this way. There's another method that's similar to this one where you wrap the input inside the label. That works as well, but the for ID method is more flexible. So in my example here, I have the label for, and I have added for equals, what's it called? Quotation marks email. And on the input, and then I have the ID equals quotation marks email to kind of connect them together. Then we come to the contrast. So what contrast should we check on input field? Well, it's important that the text has the contrast ratio 4.5 to 1 as the placeholder, because the placeholder is a part of the text and the text needs to have 4.5 to 1. So make sure both label and placeholder has that contrast ratio, and the border surrounding the input field also needs enough contrast, and that one needs to be 3 to 1. I know that we sometimes find the fields where we just have added a white background and we have a different colored background around. Then the contrast ratio, of course, between the white background and that surrounding background needs to be enough, so it needs to be 3 to 1. But when the focus comes to the input field, it's not enough to have that small little bar blinking, explaining that you're in the field. You also need to make that very visually clear. So design and add a focus marker. Make the focus marker a bit thicker than the original border and make sure it has enough contrast. It has at least 3 to 1 against the background. When we have added input into our text field and we try to send it in and an error occurs, the error message cannot rely on color alone. So it's not enough that we just mark a red line around our input field and think, fine, you know, you did something wrong here, fix it. We also need to add a visual text or something else that just color alone, and also a helpful text that helps the user correct and fix the message. So adding an icon and a helpful error message so the user can correct and fix the error is the good suit. But here, again, it's important that the frame we have that explains that an error has occurred, the border has enough contrast, so at least 3:1. If we use an icon, that it has at least 3:1 against the background, and that the error text itself has at least 4.5:1. I see a lot of times that we have good contrast, but when it comes to the error field, there's the lacking contrasts. On the note, helping the user succeed. This means that we design proactively, not just reactively. So we use the right input type. And I'll show what this in a short moment, but input type is the type of field that you are working with. That we add autocomplete to browsers, so we help the user fill in the form. That we mark required fields clearly. And here's a tip, mark the minority. If most fields are required, then mark the few optional ones instead. Why? Because if you mark every single field in a form with an asterisk or required, it creates visual noise, and that can create a cognitive overload for some users. Users stop paying attention to the markers because they are everywhere. So it's like putting an explanation mark after every sentence. They kind of lose the meaning after a while. So mark the minority to make the pattern clear and reduce clutter. Or if all fields are required, you might just write that clearly above the form, all fields are required in the form. If we need extra text, I still don't recommend adding that extra information in a placeholder text because it disappears and it might be helpful. So then we can add a helper text underneath the form. And then it's important that we connect this helper text to the form, so it's also announced in text-to-speech assistive technology. This ensures that everyone gets the guidance they need to fill out the form correctly. So here is an example of a form. We have the label clearly above. We have added that it's required, so it's clear visually. And we have underneath the form, we have added a helper text. Make sure you include your full name. Then this text is still there after they have filled in the form, and they can make sure they've done it correctly instead of hiding it in the placeholder that disappears. And when we start writing in it, if we've added autocomplete, we will get suggestions on what we can add to that field. If we added the right autocomplete, that is, and the user can more easily just select it and get the help to fill in the form as quickly as possible. So let's look at the code and how it all comes together. So here's a properly marked up name field. It's a lot of code here, so I will just highlight the parts I will talk about. So this is an easy win to use the right type. When you use, for instance, type email instead of type text for an email field, the mobile users automatically get an email optimized keyboard with the @ sign visible, and it's easy accessible. This helps a lot of users. Same for type tel, or they get a number pad, or type number for numeric inputs. This helps user easier to input the right things into the fields. Or type date for date pickers. You get a better usability and accessibility for mobile phone users. The next one is autocomplete. So autocomplete attribute is incredibly powerful to be but very underused, I think. It tells browsers and password managers what type of data each field expects. So using the name for full names or given name for first names or email for email addresses help users get the right content into the field. This makes forms faster to fill out. It reduces typos. It helps users with cognitive disabilities who might struggle to remember their information. It also helps users with motor impairments or those using assistive technology. So they don't have to type as much, which reduces physical effort and potential errors. Autocomplete is one of those features that benefits everyone. And then I have the required. So if we highlight the required attribute, for semantic HTML, form controls use the HTML required attribute. This prevents form submission until the field is filled, and it also tells assistive technology users that the field is required. Mark it visually in the label, or if you want to hide that part so it's not double announced in for assistive technology, you can hide it in a span and do ARIA hidden on it, but it's important that it's both visually set to required and you have added the required flag to the input field. If you use an asterisk, it's important to you somewhere in the form explain what that asterisk means. So it's easy for a user to understand that the asterisk is a required. It's the same as required. Helper text, the text we had underneath the form. So here's that ARIA described by attribute in action. It connects the help text to the input field. So when a screen user focus on the field, they will hear name, required, edit text, make sure to include your full name. So they will get that information into their announcement. The help text is announced automatically. So this ensures that everyone gets that guidance, not just people who can see it visually. And this is also crucial that it's visual, because the help text sometimes is added just for the help for users with assistive technology or screen readers. But for some people, this help text really helps as well, even if you are seeing. So if you have a helper text, make sure it's both visually there and that you have connected it correctly with ARIA described by.
I think maybe you can take a little bit less details because we are soon.
Yeah, I'm finished. I have 3 slides left.
Okay.
So accessible error message. Now, error messages, they need to be specific, not generic. They need to explain what's wrong and how to fix it. So it's not enough to say invalid. Remember to use plain language and avoid jargon. You need to connect your error message with ARIA described by here as well. And you need to use ARIA invalid true on the input field when it has an error, and ARIA live for announcing the errors. So yes, quickly look at that code. So here we have an error, a message with an error on it, and we have added ARIA invalid true, ARIA described by, and then added the message. What's good to think about here, if you have a helper text, you just add ARIA described by one after each other. And you update this, of course, with JavaScript, so it's always active. Also on the span, I recommend that you add a rule alert, so you get that ARIA live rule, so it's announced for a screen reader when the errors occur. So all users can fix the problems easily. And I have one last thing I want to say. Do not rely on browser validation. I see this a lot. This goes against everything I say, because I always say use semantic HTML, but when it comes to browser validation, there are so many problems. They are inconsistent across browsers, so they look different in every browsers. This inconsistent styling you can't control, so you're not sure what's showing up. They are not always accessible, and they are not always working together with assistive technology. They might have the wrong language because they use the browser language, not the site language. So they might show up in Swedish, but the site was in English. That's very hard for users with assistive text-to-speech tools. They're not user-friendly because they are not persistent. So they disappear after you start writing. So they are like that unhelpful placeholder text. To not use them, you can add the code no validate, and then add your own validation message, which I suggest you should do. So build your own. And on that note, I think I was finished. I have a smart guide where I have collected the best tips how to create accessible input forms, or input fields. Any questions?
Thank you, Malin, for this. A lot of information in a short time. We do have quite a few questions. So the first one is on the autocomplete. So it's from a university library. We have been advised that our library catalog login and password input fields need to have autocomplete turned on. But some catalogs are in public spaces. We think that autocomplete means that the fields autocomplete to a previous user credentials. Are there security or privacy risks, and are there alternatives?
So when it comes to passwords, if the user saves the password in the browser in the library, then that's definitely a security risk. But if you somehow can clean that or remove any saved password, but it doesn't really help if you have it in a public computer, because autocomplete only works good when it's on my personal computer where I have saved my data. So if it's only on public, then I would recommend to set autocomplete off. If you're available both on public and at home, I would recommend to keep it, but make sure that you clear those saved data on the library computers. I think is the best recommendation.
Okay, thanks a lot. We have another one here. Is the helper text recommended for every single input text element? Is this an additional element that screen reader users have to click through? Is there a balance here?
I would not use it on every. I usually recommend them if you notice a lot of people doing errors on that field. For instance, that it needs to be in a specific format or something, or you're adding a password and you have some password rules and you want to explain those, then you should use the helper text, I think. Otherwise, it's one of those things that's also clutter the form, making it harder to fill in if it's too much info. So a good label is the best.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And the next question is, search fields often miss a visible label and have a magnifying glass icon next to it instead. Could we consider the magnifying glass as a valid alternative to a label to identify the input purpose?
I think so. I think that search fields are excluded from this, but they still need a label connected to them, even if the label isn't visible. So you have that it's named search. So it's not a nameless field for users that rely on, for instance, screen readers.
Thank you. And the next one is, should a summary of all errors be presented at the top if the form is submitted with errors, with multiple errors, I guess?
Yes, that's our recommendation. I didn't have that with me because I only talked about input fields, but yes, if we summarize the errors at the top, it's easy for the user to see exactly what fields they need to fill in the form again. So that's a good practice. It helps, we've seen in user tests.
Yes. Okay, and here's another one. Should keyboard focus be moved if the errors are found on submit?
I think what you're asking, if when you submit, will focus would land afterwards. And the recommendation is that we set the focus either to the summarized error message on top of the form or to the form field that has an error. So it's evident where the error occurs, because it doesn't help anyone just shouting out the error message if you don't know where to move to afterwards.
Okay, perfect. So I think now we have multiple questions about the smart guides, but I think Stefan added the link, so that's good. So I think we can move on with the kind of wrapping up. I think you have another couple of things you want to share. Yep.
So I love doing trainings, and we at Funka Foundation truly believe that if we want to change the world and make it more inclusive, accessible, we need to teach each other more about everything. So, or at least accessibility. So if you want to learn more, we have lots of trainings surrounding both developer and designers. We have those rule-based training, but we also have, if you're wanting to get certified, the IAAP certification prep trainings. We have trainings about accessibility foundations. We have specific document trainings. We have on specific topics we were good at, like cognition and stuff. And we have on policy, legislation, and standards. So if you want to learn more about VCAG or EN 31549 or EAA or what it is. You can find our trainings at funkafoundation.org/training, or if you don't find the training you want, email us at info@funkafoundation.org, and we love to help out. So we have live trainings, on-demand trainings, and an e-learning platform. And on the live training...
You forgot the content creators when you said the role-based. You said developers and designers, but we also have for content creators. So there's another role there.
Yeah, and procurers, I think. Okay, but... we have an upcoming live training. It's in Swedish. It's called Accessibility, Assistive Technology, and User Needs. And this is how happy me and Susanna becomes when we get to talk about the most important thing, the user and user-centered design. So it's next week, October 23rd, between 13 and 16. It's via Zoom, and the price is 1,800 Swedish kronas plus VAT per person. You can find it on the Swedish part of our site, stiftelsenfunka.org/se/pågång eller pagang. And if you are interested, guys listening, me and Susanna becomes this happy when we get to do this training. So if you're interested in having it in English, please write so in the chat, and we'll see if we can set up a live training in English in a close future. Then I also promised to do a bit of highlight of a webinar for IAAP EU called where we do these workshops, and we try to share the results. They are very nerdy, so if you like nerdiness, like this topic today, this might be something for you. So we go through the EN 31549 criteria and how to test them. And in this very workshop, we did something cool. We looked at it together in the latest version of the EN 31549, so the standard that will come out next year, and checked what do we need to do to test this in the new standard. And we have one of the favorite criteria in here, user preferences. So if you don't have anything to do, next Thursday, the 23rd of October, between 15 and 16, don't miss this exciting webinar. And I think that was all from me. Except please subscribe to our newsletter, follow us on LinkedIn, and if you like these types of videos, make sure you like them and give us some positive feedback so we know what to continue with.
And there was a mix-up with the links for the Smart Guide, so it's actually published a mistake in our website, so we'll have to fix that and send it to you in the thank you email, so you will receive the correct link to the Smart Guide on Monday. Sorry for that, but thanks everyone for listening. Thank you very much, Malin, for the excellent presentation and good responses, and thank you for all the questions, and have a very nice rest of your Friday, everyone. And see you soon. We will continue our Friday webinar series, of course, as usual, every second Friday. And we are planning a series of sector-specific EAA webinars. We haven't really decided where to start, but could be e-commerce, and we get a lot of questions about that. So stay tuned for more interesting webinars, possibly on the European Accessibility Act. Bye-bye.
Bye.